Do you find that women are, if women are running households in the developing countries, does that mean they're really the bosses rather than the victims?
Well, I think it depends a lot. I mean, I think in India, for instance, in the cities, actually it's an adverse sex ratio. There are fewer women and there are more men. So I don't think that has quite happened of migration of women on their own. But there are women-headed households. And women are forced to be strong, you know, because they have to fight all the time, especially women living in cities. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of them on a variety of subjects. And they say we spend our whole lives fighting. You know, I've talked to them about violence, and they say, you know, what is this abstract thing you're talking about? Every single day I have to fight for my 5 buckets of water. But I'll say one thing, that when we were talking earlier about housing, I mean, there's no consultation in terms of including women in the design of houses. You know, the reason why public housing is such a failure is not only that the people for whom the housing is planned are not consulted, but the women are not consulted.
Gary, you travel the world trying to help people run cities and build cities. How many of the people who come to listen to you are men and how many are women?
It depends very much on the audience. Let me give you an industrialized world example. Because, I mean, it's not just that women have to expend so much more energy to live their lives than men do in any sort of city context. It's also that without women's voices, you can't actually incorporate issues for children. We were doing a comprehensive plan for the city of Seattle, and you know, here I am, large white male roaming through life, you know, unconscious about these sort of things. We had advisory groups from women's organizations throughout the city, and we learned that the city looks entirely differently from the eyes of a child than the eyes of an adult. So we had planners in little carts being pulled around the neighborhood so they could actually see the sight lines that children see, and found out how they were just living in a world of blank walls.
You mean that, sorry, you mean that literally?
Literally, yeah.
Just out of interest, do you listen to this and think this is the kind of thing that only a rich, developed country would ever imagine doing?
Naturally, I mean, it's so wonderful to hear it, but I was just thinking that when you were talking in the case of Bombay, for instance, when the consultation about toilets took place, it's because women were included in discussing it that they came up with the idea of having children's toilets, you know, because the Indian-style toilet is such that a child cannot use it. So even though the municipal corporation was building toilets, children were squatting outside those toilets because mothers didn't want them to use those toilets because they'd fall in, you know. And so I take Gary's point that, you know, I think if women are consulted, then children's needs are taken care of. But there's a huge difference between the kind of needs that you're talking about and the kind of needs, you know, the very basic needs that we have to.
Okay, well, let's talk about how cities are run. Housing, gender, crime, disorder. The fundamental problem, of course, is that cities around the world are too often badly run, although we found some people who do approve of how their cities are governed.
There's a lot being done to sort out the crimes. There's a lot being done to try and sort out the economic disparities, if you like. Just like the entire country, I think the whole world is aware that a lot is being done to fix things, yeah.
Looking at the streets of Johannesburg and looking at the standard of living in Johannesburg and the rate of unemployment in Johannesburg, I don't think that it's been well governed.
Right now in India, everybody is looking after their position, political position. Nobody is thinking about country or state or city. Nobody bothers us. They say.
Carpenter, it's become fashionable to say that a lot of the problems of the developing world are brought about by bad governance. Is that true in cities? Are most of them just simply badly run?
Well, I think it's sort of governance by default. That's the way I see it. You know, I think it's like all our governments, city governments, are walking up a down escalator. They're just about coping. There's nobody who's thinking in terms of a vision for the city, you know, anticipating what the city would be.
Is it right, Michael, to be asking the rest of the world, as Western governments effectively do, are asking their voters to help cities and developing nations when a lot of the money will disappear in corruption?
The whole point about encouraging governance is to address the problems of tilting against corruption, having regulations that are appropriate, having local authority which is answerable to the people. I mean, the definition in my terms of governance is decision making. It's getting people to be involved in what they want. But you can't just have that. You also need management. You also need to follow it through of how to do it. So you need a combination of good governance and good urban management to help address the problems that we're talking about.
Jose, I'm sure you don't have problems of corruption or in Barcelona. Maybe there's still some inefficiency.
I hope so. But I don't understand why we talk about of the corruption in a relationship with the cities.
That's where the money is.
Because no, because the money is not in the cities, in the central governments.
Well, that's where the cities are.
No. The main, no. Excuse me. And I think that the main problem of our civilization is that in the last century, the governments, the central governments, has forgot of the problems of the city. In the 16th century, in Florence, the main important problem of the Prince of Medici was the city of Florence. And today, the most important problems of the presidents of the United States are not the cities. And the cities is only for the mayor. The most difficult and complex job of the world. And I know very well, because I work in the city of Barcelona in the last 20 years.
Is this notion that we're moving into an age of, almost literally, of city-states and the nation-state is dying out, cities are the future and will end up governing themselves, is that true?
The economy has decided that exchanges take place between city-states, not between nations. And the whole globalization phenomenon has been a shift from national agendas to the agendas of economic regions, sometimes within the same country, sometimes the central cities. And it's created a tension we haven't talked about, and that is charismatic mayors, people who govern well, people who can inspire people to greatness are always perceived to be the political rivals of the national government. So there's this element of politics that also exists here that's difficult to overcome.
Do you believe that the cities are going to take over, end of the nation state?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think there's any possibility of that. And I think what I see in the future is sort of a two-class system in terms of cities, where you'll have global cities, even within a country like India, no matter where the economy goes, which will get all the benefits of being part of this global economy and all the problems that come with it. And you'll get the other smaller cities which will continue to struggle without getting the funding and without getting any of the attention that they ought to get.
So do you believe, Michael, that cities are the future? I mean, is Habitat going to be the executive of some 21st century world government?
Cities are here to stay. If half the cities are in a bad state, it makes the other half of the city bad. So there's problems, as you said, of security and so on. So we have to attend to all these problems. It's an urban century we're moving into, first time in the history of mankind, and all these things have to be done.
Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you, Gary Lawrence, Jose Acevedo, Kalpana Sharma and Michael Parks. And good night from Barcelona, a city where you can see what can be done when people agree how to build the cities of the future.